As a mother, wife, and divorce attorney for over 15 years, experience has taught me a lot about how to deal with times of uncertainty, transition, and facing opportunities for growth. I'm happy you're joining me for this part of the journey. If you have little ones in your home, you know the feelings of frustration when it comes to trying to get them to do something that they don't want to do. What do you do when your little one is crying inconsolably and it seems like nothing works? If you're like my guest today, you get creative. Today, my guest is going to talk to us about how she got so creative she ended up with over 300 stories that were effective at helping calm her little one down and have worked to calm down other children as well. How did she do that? She let him interrupt. My guest today is the creative genius, Ali Loop, also known as Alejandra Leibovich. She served as the senior art director for Nickelodeon, VH1, and MTV, and won numerous awards for her work in the industry. She's also the co-founder of How to Manage Enterprises, which is listed as an Inc. 5000 fastest growing company over 6 years in a row. Together, through How to Manage Enterprises, she works to help make sure that entrepreneurs get to grow and change the lives of thousands of families. And one of her most important roles is being mother to Taye Astua, who is 6 years old and who is the inspiration behind Stories Interrupted. Ali, welcome today.
Thank you so much. That was an amazing intro.
Well, I'm so excited to sit down and talk with you about Stories Interrupted. As a mom of 3 kids, I know definitely what those moments feel like. I can, it doesn't take me a lot to get back to that moment of frustration. And you have taken that frustration and really brought your creativity to bear. So tell us about these stories.
So, yes, when my son turned 3 or 4, until then he had been happy-go-lucky kid, like amazingly happy and zero issues, very little crying. But then when he changed ages, I don't know what happened. And he will go into these crying sprees. I will say no to something. He will start crying like any other kid. But then he wouldn't stop after a minute or two. He would keep crying. And I realized that he couldn't stop. So I gave him the language, which is something that I find very important, to give our kids language so they can express themselves and they are less frustrated. And then we are less frustrated. So I gave him the language to ask for help to stop crying. So he started asking me, and it was heartbreaking. He would say, ask me, help me stop crying. So I tried everything, like what we all do. Like I asked a teacher, friends, a psychologist, I read books, like all kinds of things. It didn't work consistently. It maybe like the breathing was the worst, like that didn't work at all. And then books on redirection, some things like maybe would work once, but nothing worked actually consistently. So one day he went into one of these crying like sprees, and I thought, you know what? I'm gonna use what I used to do in all of the TV networks, right? Let's see if I can interrupt him, if I can actually like change the pattern. So I asked him a simple question that for a boy, I mean, my boy, it worked, which was, have I ever told you the story about the frog with the one eye? So a frog is interesting, but a frog with one eye, that's even more interesting for a boy. So it was like magic. He actually stopped crying. And then he looked at me, and then I thought, oh gosh, what do I do now? So then I had to start telling him the story that I didn't know. And I just invented it on the spot with like all of I had been drawing cartoon characters for a long time, but I just grabbed like anything that I saw in the room, like a book about giraffes, a book with elephants, like anything that I saw in the room went into the story, whatever, it didn't matter. So within like seconds, he stopped crying completely. And then within minutes, he was laughing. He was laughing, and then he was actually participating. So he will interrupt the story, right? And I realized that it was those interruptions of letting him interrupt that kind of made the whole, like everything in his brain and with these crying spills, like change. It had to do with him being able to participate and express himself.
What you did is so interesting because as parents, we kind of, develop some skills, maybe some healthy things and not so healthy. This is completely transformative. And you recognized an opportunity. So tell us how you took this moment with your son and really developed a library of stories. And what are you doing with that? Where can people find out about this?
So I didn't recognize the opportunity at first. It took a bunch of stories until I realized, okay, this works every time. This is a tool as a parent that I can have, and I've been using it. Now that he's 6.5, now it's harder. I have to really be top of my game to to tell him a story, and like he tells me like, okay, he calms down. If ever anything happened, he still calms down. But when he was younger, it worked every single time, and I realized that it didn't matter so much what exactly I was telling him. The thing was that it was interesting, right? It was interesting for him. It was, I used lizards and well, frogs and peacocks and cats and dogs, anything that he was interested at the moment. And I have actually heard parents that they just tell their kids, when they ask them to tell them stories, they just tell the same movie that they just saw, but adapted, right? Like it doesn't really matter exactly what you do. With these stories, it became, for my son, it became a whole universe. So the universe has rules. So the frog with the one eye is a scientist, and it is building a spaceship to go to the moon underground, like under our house, basically. So one day, in many stories, we go down there, we do experiments, and the spaceship is powered by rainbow power, which my son was into rainbows for a while. So then we jump on the rainbow, and then we do stuff in the rainbow, and we go places, and it's just kind of using what he's interested in to add to it with stories and with things that happen that kind of he is into, to then allow him to take his creativity out. When an interesting thing that happened that I didn't expect it was going to happen, in the stories, sometimes there is no conflict. There is nothing like problematic that they have to solve. Kind of like real life. Like many times, things are happening and we don't have conflicts all the time that we have to solve. The stories are kind of like that. So the characters do one thing, they decide to do something that maybe doesn't work, so then they try something else, and then they decide to go somewhere else. Kind of like if you were playing for an afternoon with your kids, and like you keep pivoting or zigzagging from place to place. The stories work like that. So my son learned the skill by listening to the stories of just zigzagging. If something doesn't work, we need to try something else. And then if that doesn't work, then we need to try some other thing. And it created I call it the what if. Typical conversation with my son after these stories goes like this. We are upstairs and he says, "Where is Papa?" So his dad. So I say, he could be in the kitchen. So then what if he's not in the kitchen? And I ask. And then I say, he could be in his office. And what if he's not in his office? And then we go with that what if all the way up to the Andromeda galaxy. Like it goes anywhere. But that is a skill that as an entrepreneur you must have. If you don't have what if, you can't have a business, basically. Like it's a way to go through life where you are gonna get stuff thrown at you. It's just gonna happen. And it's in the what if and how you keep zigzagging until you get to your destination, to where you wanna be. I will say that that is the biggest thing that I found with the stories that are so valuable. And when I realized that, I thought, okay, let's put them out to the world. So I made an app for phone.
Hold on for just a second. I'm going to interrupt you here before we go and talk about other platforms, because I really want to emphasize what a valuable skill you're giving your son. And I'm sitting here thinking of how often in that moment of frustration where, to distract or divert, my child, maybe I just threw the iPad at them, and so that they could go and, amuse themselves with something else that was being given to them. And what you're really doing is igniting the distraction from within. You're igniting him to look at the world of possibilities. And that's the what if question. That is so amazing and so profound. And I think, you're right. As entrepreneurs, we do have to live with the what if. As creators in this world, we have to live with the what if and live in the world of possibilities. And I think that is amazing, Allie. I really thank you for sharing that. So now I want to transition and talk about the ways that you are sharing this, because you've made this available for other parents to really tap into and learn from your example.
Yeah, I have an app that is free, that is called Calm Down Stories. And it has many of the stories. The stories are spoken word stories. I started telling them to my son, and of course I couldn't write while I was telling him the story. So I recorded them on my cell phone. So these are the recorded stories, but edited with music, with sound effects, which the kids love the sound effects. Like every cat and every animal has their own meow and their own wow and their own thing, and they love that. Like if a door closes, then you hear the door closing. It's kind of like a spoken word story. And those they will calm the kids down, and like they fall asleep. They are not your big studio celebrity voice stories. These are homemade. Okay, these are mom-made, homemade. If you like that style, this is for you. If you like, the perfect recording with the rehearsed actor that is telling the story, that's not that. They are very real because they are the live recordings, right? And then I just released one of them because it's my love to draw cartoons. I just released actually my first comic book with one of the stories. This is as Comics Interrupted. And what I did with this one is to add the creativity and to put the interruptions. The comic is actually full of interruptions for real. Like my son appears, like the character of my son appears breaking the page and then interrupting and changing the story, just like in the live stories. The effect is the same. And then I did the second part of the book. Then they get to write their own. So this will be the page where they draw the title, and then everything is blank. So then they get to write their own thing and even their own interruptions. So this just came out like 2 days ago, and I just got my first copy. And I decided to do it in comic because I love comics. I think it's such a great way for kids to learn concepts and read something that is going to add to their lives, that is going to interest them, that is in their language, right? um, a lot of parents, like, they are like, oh, comic books, like if they are not going to teach you anything, and some of them don't teach you anything, but I think that we can use them to teach actually something, like this concept of what if, and also like spark their creativity, right? That's why I left the whole second part of the comic is like they do their own thing. And I have I started in a platform called Wattpad. I started publishing the stories.
And so, where can people go to learn more about your community and about the stories?
On my website, alelup.com.
That is great. I want to talk a little bit about how because you and your husband work together, and you all have built this very successful multiple companies. And you did all that before your son was born, and so then your son came into the world. And I want to talk a little bit about how you have juggled the many demands of being a very successful entrepreneur, artist, talented in your own right, and the gift of motherhood. How that changed for you.
I can tell you that now I'm in a program to age better, okay? Because it does take a lot out of you. So what I did is I chose, right? I chose to build the business and to just dedicate time to that, because you can't do everything. So I left a little bit of the art. I was kind of fulfilled with that. So I went head on with building the different businesses. What I did when my son was born, I had planned to replace myself. So I did. I replaced myself, and I would just kind of work when I needed to, when I wanted to. But I did it wrong. I didn't put in certain checkpoints. So then I had to come back and fix a ton of stuff for about 2 years while I was looking to replace myself again, but this time with the right people. So I'm basically semi-retired. I don't have a job. I don't have a title. I'm co-founder in the business, like in the businesses. I don't have responsibilities other than being a shareholder. The second time, I took my time and I did it right. The business is actually growing and is doing way better than I could have ever imagined. The stories with with my son, they are like, they happen during my whole replacing myself process, and I have them, and they are beautiful. Like, I love them, so I'm doing that project too. But that's how you have to choose. You have to choose. You can't do everything.
It's true. You really can't. And it is a choice. And I think, when we're conscious and aware that we have a choice, so often I think people feel like the circumstances are just dictating, where the direction that their life is going in. But when you peel back and you stop and you look at those circumstances, we always have a choice of how we're going to respond to them and how we can show up. What ways?
Well, I believe that, and this is in the story, I believe that I can create the world around me. I always believe that. Even when I was in Argentina and grew up in a dictatorship, it's not explicit. I'm not teaching, oh, you can create the world around you. But with all of the interruptions and letting the kids interrupt, they get to learn to create the world in the stories, which then they will create their world around them, around themselves, right? It's kind of like a practice run. I think that as adults, if we take 100% responsibility for us, our life, how we think, what we feel, how we act, we realize that we have that power within us. Sometimes it's not that easy to see it, but within there is, for every problem, there is a solution. It's the same as there is up and there is down, there is outside, there is inside, there is problem, there is solution. So there is always a solution, even if sometimes it's really hard to see. Sometimes it takes months, or sometimes it can take years, to solve a specific problem. But we do have, the solution always exists. And it's important that us as parents, we also teach that to our kids, that things can happen, but then we choose how we are going to act about it and how we're going to feel about it. The feeling is a learning experience for the kids. My son still doesn't get that. But I think at one point when he grows up a little bit more, he will.
I love that. You just shared a little bit about growing up in Argentina in a dictatorship. And I think it's so easy for people to look at somebody like you who's so accomplished. You've had such an amazing career and, co-founder of the businesses, and easy to look and say, well, it was easy for her. And
No,
you certainly have had challenges to overcome. What helped you going through all the challenges in your life? I mean, what do you think it is that has brought you to this place where you're really getting to enjoy the fruits of your labor, especially the time with your son?
I think it's called grit. I always wanted more. I always wanted to try things. I am very curious, I'm a very curious person. And some things, when I see them, they inspire me, and I want to do that, or I want to investigate that. And when I was a kid, I don't remember what age I was, but I went to the house, I think it was an apartment, of somebody that I had just met, and we had just become friends. And I had never been to this person's house, and there were very few apartments. I was living in a small town, so going to an apartment building, it was kind of like a new thing. And when I got into her room, the room of this girl was all pink. I shared my room with my brother, my older brother. So my room was kind of like with adult furniture, brown. The walls might have been light blue. It was mainly toys, like boy toys. Nothing was gender specific. When I went to this girl's room, everything was pink. There was little kids' furniture, which I didn't even know existed, like little kids' furniture. And she had pink curtains, which to me was, I'd never seen pink curtains. I'd never seen wallpaper pink, furniture pink, bed cover pink, bed that was pink. Like, it was like a new world. And I didn't like it. Like, I didn't like the design of the things in pink, but that made me think, if this exists that I didn't know that existed, what else exists that I don't know, right? That exists. And I think that curiosity of what else exists that I don't know it exists, always kept me going. I knew that if I'm here, there is a place for me in the world, and there is brain, right, that is unique to me. And if I cannot develop that, why would I be here? Everything that we see has a purpose. Everything, absolutely everything in nature, it didn't just happen, is there for a reason. The same as us, as each of us. And to not be able to develop that is kind of like, what's the point? So I left Argentina by myself when I was 22, when my mom passed away. and never went back. I knew one person in the States, and it was just amazing. Like the whole trip, I always said yes to every opportunity. And I was always very focused on where I wanted to go. So then I would get the jobs that I wanted. Why? Because I wanted to have fun. I wanted to be doing that, you know?
I love that. I mean, I think it's such a powerful example of what happens when you have a focus and you have curiosity and you live in a world of what ifs. I'm sure it didn't exactly go as you had planned it if you were going to lay it all out. But what an amazing adventure you've had.
Yeah, I was actually the only one from my family that did that. One of my far away cousins, he also a dancer. He also left Argentina, and we just saw each other in New York a couple weeks ago, and we're the only ones.
Yeah.
And we have offered, the rest. Yeah, like I'll help you come. Like it's not that hard. I mean, it is hard, but you can do it. And no, I think there has to be a belief. I see it as with our members at How to Manage Enterprises, like with all the business owners we work. If they believe it's possible, then we can help them grow their business, start their business, sell, whatever it is. But if the person doesn't believe that is possible, we cannot help them. And there is something in that belief. I have an example of this. So one day, a few years ago, my wrist was hurting a lot. And when I was a kid, I had a bad fall in gymnastics, and then these ligaments, they gave in, they broke. So I went to the doctor, like as a grown-up, just a few years ago, when they put a cast on my arm. And the moment that they put the cast on my arm, I said, oh no, this is terrible. And I said, I'm not gonna be able to stay 3 weeks with this thing. And then I thought, if we were in Star Trek, if we were in the Enterprise and the doctor was here, like she or he would like put, like just something, and it would be cured, and that would be the end of it. So then that got me thinking, why don't we have that, right? Because some things from that show we have the iPad, we have the cell phone, we had like the flip phone, like communicators, we have all of that, but we don't have certain things. We don't have a transporter, we don't have the medicine is nowhere, is in the show. And I think that we don't have it because there has not been somebody that believes that that's possible to actually invent it. Because some things are, like the materials are all the same. They've always been here, from the beginning of Earth, of being human beings. But some things are here and some things are not. And it's that belief that something is possible that makes that person, kind of go for it, even if they don't know how in the world it's going to happen, but they believe that it's possible.
I want to go back just for a moment to, like you and your husband, you all figured out how to run a successful enterprise and all the success that you had in your life. And then you have a child. What ways did that take you by surprise? Because I can remember back in my own world thinking, like bringing a baby home isn't going to be such a big deal. When I have my maternity leave, I'll have 6 weeks to sit around and do nothing, and we'll clean out closets. And of course, then the baby shows up, and it's a whole game change.
You cannot turn them off.
You cannot turn them off. And whatever you thought it was going to be like, it's going to be different. So I'm curious for you, Allie, what ways did you find parenthood surprising? What caught you by surprise?
So, oh gosh, I didn't believe, I did not believe that it was going to be so much work. Like, I could not, I had made movies, I had built businesses. Like, I mean, I know how hard it is, like, launch TV channels, right? Worldwide. Like, I had worked my ass, sorry again. I had worked my butt off. I knew how hard it could be. But this is a different level of work. Like, it's a completely different level of tiredness. Like, it's a depth that you just cannot imagine. I didn't expect how tiring it was gonna be. I did do it. I was 42 when I had him. So, like, it was different. Like, that caught me by surprise. I didn't know that it was going to be so much harder after 40 than before, like at 30 or like 20 something. Like, I think it's a little bit easier before, but I don't know. But after 40, it is freaking hard. I didn't expect that it would be fun. I don't know. You do stuff like showing him all of the new things. Like, that also was surprising.
It's how
The
much
tiredness,
fun. Yeah.
yeah, the tiredness to me, that's what was the most surprising of all.
And I'll say one of the great things along the parenting journey is you're never done, right? It's always a new stage that comes, and you're always just as ill-equipped to deal with the new stage as you were when that baby first showed up. So it'll be fun to watch you as you kind of grow up with Taye through all of the adolescent years and the teenage years. But I will say my experience is very similar in that in each of those moments there is just such opportunity to grow as a parent, to grow as a person, right? You're watching them grow. We know that so much of this is about them growing up, but it also presents opportunities for us to grow too. So,
Yeah, if you don't, I always choose this same as I do with the stories and like the problems. When I have the problem of the crying sprees, can I choose, oh, can I make this fun or can I make this boring, or like painful? And I choose fun. So in
amen.
yeah, because I can choose, we all can choose, right? So it might be uncomfortable, like especially at the beginning, to figure out, okay, what do I do here? But I don't know. There are new things like with the iPad, the video games, the watching things on his own in the iPad, like in the kids' YouTube. Like, there are challenges every day that I have to figure out, okay, how am I gonna deal with this and what is my criteria? Like, what am I gonna tell him? Is this okay or is this not okay? And then what do other parents do? And what I realized is that I stopped judging parents, like, at all. Like, I don't know what is good for your kid or not. And if you do something, like, there are these, for example, these two parents that both of them had 3 kids. And one of them, they are really big on screen time, right? Like, one parent, he puts timers on YouTube and like timers on their devices, which I don't even know how to do, but he puts timers of like 5 minutes. So the kids can only watch for 5 minutes and then, it stops it right in that session. And I'm like, what the heck? And then the other one is doing, they let them have 30 minutes of screen time per week. And like, I'm like, before I would have said that's wrong, they're crazy. And now, no, now I ask, right? I ask, okay, how do you come to that conclusion? Like, what happened there? And yeah, the 30 minutes, the older kid, he's like in 3rd grade, he has a ton of homework, and then is with the iPads and like the screens, it distracts the third one, right? And the house is not that big. So then they have to do, 30 minutes per week and on weekends, and that's the end of it, because the rest of the time they have to have family time, they have to go to church, they have to, all do all of these things. And that's kind of what the kids ended up with. And
I think in these days, like we're in such unexplored territory with the devices, right? People do have such a gamut. There's such a spectrum of, what's the right thing to do and what's not the right thing to do. And there's not, I don't know that there's a right answer. There may be some wrong answers out there, but, kind of suspending that judgment.
There was a birthday party during the pandemic. It was outside in a park. And I got a call from the headmaster of the school that asking me about what had happened in that birthday party, right? One of the things that had happened with these brothers and sisters was that there was a little girl that was crying for like an hour, or I don't remember how long it was that the little girl was crying, and that the mom wasn't there anywhere. And she has 3 kids. And there were new parents that had complained about it, but complained badly. And I told the headmaster, I said, look, yes, I did see the girl crying, but I didn't think anything of it. Why? Because if I tell my son no to his 4th slice of cake, he's gonna cry for 45 minutes. It's just gonna happen, and I'm gonna let him cry. That's how it is. So I don't know what happened, like why the girl is crying. And it could have been that after, the 3rd cupcake, the mom said no, and then she's gonna cry until, and that's kind of how it's gonna be. Like I don't judge anymore. That is something that I learned
it's so
from
funny
experience.
because I think before I had children, I had all these rules and ideas about how my children would behave out in restaurants and out in public, and what homework would look like, and all of it just went right out the window when they come home. So yeah, I always say, what a feast of eating my words it was, because
Yes, totally. I think that as parents, like what we have the responsibility to do is to see what works for our kid. And for example, my son loves sweets, and that's the only thing that I have an amount that he can eat per week, and he is obsessed with it. Like I don't have screen time, like no other thing, because he doesn't really abuse it. Like there could be days where he doesn't even want to watch his iPad, right, or watch TV, and like he prefers to play with people. Like it's not an issue, but the candy is an issue. So I've been actually thinking, should I just let it be, so then it's not a big deal, so then he stops being obsessed about it? And I don't know, I haven't made a decision yet.
It's such a good question. And you will find just more and more of those questions as, they become teenagers and are wanting to go to parties. And you're like, do I make this an issue or do I not make it an issue? So I'm right there with you. As we kind of bring our time to a close today, and I've so enjoyed this, you've been so generous with your experiences. I would just like to know, what message of hope do you have for parents who are in the midst of transitioning, with new ones coming into their homes, and just all the opportunities that parenting has to offer?
I think that we have to be on top of everything else. We have to be conscious of our energy. If we have bad energy and an attitude about something, judgmental, like anything negative, they pick it up immediately. And we have to be very careful with that. I think it's part of the work of being conscious of it. So whatever is happening, they feel safe, because that's one of the things that I think that the kids suffer the most, is when they feel unsafe for different reasons. Why? Because we are uptight about something, we are on edge, we have a bad attitude or energy about something, a person, a situation, and we have to be very aware. I think that the more calm that we can be, doing simple things as 5 minutes of meditation a day, or even listening to the meditation radio on Pandora or Spotify. I hope that other parents can do that. It's so simple, right? As listening to the meditation station before going to bed, when we wake up, or sometime during the day. It actually works. You know, the music that when you go and get a massage, that music, it really makes a difference for everybody.
I love that. And I think what you're doing is really helping parents to find ways to build that connection with their children through the use of creative storytelling. And it's something that, you know, as adults, we often forget, is to use that creativity as a way, as really a source of building connection. And of course, when we're connected with our children, we feel safer, they feel safer. And, you know, it's a beautiful thing. Thank you, Allie, so much for sharing your stories and your passion. We are going to include links to your website, and people can learn all about the app and the books that you have. I can't wait to check out the cartoon book, and we hope that they will take a look at everything that you have to offer. And of course, we hope you will click the link below and subscribe to our podcast here at the Jennifer Hargrave Show, where we're dedicated to helping provide content to make family life all that much better. Thank you all for tuning in today, and thank you, Allie.
Thank you. I really, really enjoyed speaking with you.
This is
I
great.
hope this is valuable and helpful.
Thank you.